Hello, and welcome to the August 2022 Lunar Mansion Magic Guide. My name is Nate, aka Post-Mogulism on the interwebs, and this is my channel. Thanks for watching. In this video, I will present all of the viable Lunar Mansion elections for the coming month, as well as give you some tips on how to work with each mansion given the current astrological conditions. The pickings were slim this month, but there are still some very good elections, some good enough for making talismans, and some not quite good enough to imprint upon a talisman, but perfectly suitable for casting a one-time spell, if necessary. I will, of course, point out which mansions are suitable for which types of workings as we go along. If you enjoy this video and find value in this content, please do me a big favor and click like and consider subscribing to this channel so that you get notified when I post new videos about magic. Thanks again for watching. Now, let's get on to the upcoming elections. The best Lunar Mansion elections for August, in my opinion, are the two opportunities to work with Zubana, the ever-popular Batn, and also Zubrah, though their availability is not evenly distributed across all the time zones we cover. The first Zubana election, which is only available in the PST time zone, occurs on August 3rd and is good for prosperity and increase. Batn, good for prosperity and abundance on the 15th of the month, is sadly only available in the AET, Australian time zone. On the 18th, Zubrah, a mansion related to fame and favor from authorities, is available only in the EST time zone, while conjunct to relation sweeping Venus. The second chance to work in Zubana, good for a mercantile type of prosperity, is the last election of the month on the 30th of August and is available only to folks in the PST time zone again. This was the way of elections in August. It was rare that all the time zones had equal opportunity for a given mansion, and in most cases, only one of them got a suitable window, with a few exceptions. Talismanic quality elections were scarce in August, and usually only available to one or two time zones, but there were a number of elections which could be considered suitable for a short-term or one-off spell you need to cast in a pinch. And I'll indicate which mansions are suitable for talismans and which are not, as well as any additional astrological context I can provide as I go through each mansion. The first Lunar Mansion election of the month falls on August 3rd in the 16th mansion Zubana in Libra, which is associated with prosperity of a mercantile flavor. The image of the mansion is a man seated upon a throne and holding a scale in his hands, referencing both the weighing goods related to buying and selling, and also the scales of Libra. Book 1, Chapter 4 of the Picatrix would give the impression that this mansion is used solely for destructive purposes, saying, "In this mansion make images for the destruction of merchandise, harvests, and plants." But Book 4, Chapter 9 clarifies this by saying that a talisman made in this mansion is for making a profit in selling and buying merchandise, which continues the mercantile theme, but expands the concept to include positive outcomes as well. As with any of these neutral mansions, which are neither entirely benefic nor entirely malefic, my take is that the matters governed by the spirit of the mansion are themselves neither good or bad in their entirety, and the spirit is therefore capable of bestowing boons or ill favor. In the case of Zubana, the matter at hand is the act of buying and selling, which can be done at a profit or a loss depending on the whims of the economy, the markets, timing, etc. Zubana gives us control over both in the waxing and waning of the moon, respectively. The spirit of this mansion is Azaruel. This month, Zubana offers one election in the PST time zone, mid-morning on the 3rd, with the waxing moon in Libra conjunct the ascendant and trine Saturn in Aquarius. A trine to Saturn is sufficiently supportive to qualify this as a talisman-worthy election, and the rigorous conservative nature of Saturn can serve one well in matters of business, particularly business conducted digitally with Saturn in its domicile in the air sign of Aquarius. Next, on the 9th, the 23rd Lunar Mansion, Al-Sa'ad al-Bulah, presents an opportunity for liberation. The mansion is predominantly negative, good for divorce, destruction, and devastation. Its image is a cat with the head of a dog, depicting an impossibly volatile situation, and yet it also has the power to heal illness, according to Book 1, Chapter 4 of the Picatrix, and fixed stars and constellations of astrology. In his book, Mansions of the Moon, Christopher Warnock explains his take on this confusing mansion by saying it indicates separation, divorce, and the end of friendship. We are attempting to meld two factors that are inherently opposed and at odds with each other. Its power to heal functions on the same premise as its destructive qualities, through separation. This dynamic can also serve to create liberation, i.e. separation from one's captors. The mansion spirit is Requiel, and healing and liberation are the themes of this mansion which best fit the astrological conditions of the upcoming month. PST and EST have one election each in Asad al-Bulah in the early evening on the 9th of August, when the moon conjuncts the ascendant while trine Mars, and in EST time zone, the north node as well. Works of healing should be considered carefully given the trine to Mars. Trines are benefic, of course, but aggressive, martial, bloody energy may not suit all healing situations. If your issue has to do with inflammation, for example, I wouldn't advise this mansion for healing. However, this might be perfect for battling a lingering respiratory illness, for example. Given that the waxing moon is not ideal for malefic work, and the martial trine would make for a bloody healing talisman, this election is probably best suited for a one-time working rather than a talisman to keep around all the time. In contrast to the last few neutral mansions, Al-Sad al-Sud, the documented uses of the 24th lunar mansion are almost entirely benefic. I consider this to be a purely positive mansion, even under a waning moon, but regardless, this month, the 24th lunar mansion is under a waxing moon. The spirit of this mansion is Batn, and its image is a woman with her son in her arms in the likeness of one who is nursing. This mansion's theme is growth, demonstrated by the Picatrix, Book 1, Chapter 4, which says that it is used to increase merchandise and make a profit, and Book 4, Chapter 9, which says that its talismans are for the increase of herds, and this is at a time when livestock was one of the most traded commodities on earth. See, when Zubana governs the active exchange, the sensitive scales of Libra are employed and perhaps tipped in favor of the mage, but when the moon is in Al-Sad al-Sud, the focus instead is on the increase of the essential resource itself, rather than the margin of buying and selling. August 10th, at almost noon, and unfortunately only the ESC time zone, the moon conjuncts the midheaven while making a sextile to Jupiter. Normally, a sextile wouldn't qualify this election as talisman-worthy, but I would actually consider it this time because the lord of the domicile of the moon, which is the planet which rules the sign of the zodiac where the moon is resting, Saturn, is in its domicile in Aquarius. It is retrograde, however, so the conditions are less than ideal overall. This election would be perfectly suitable for a prosperity spell, particularly one designed to increase resources, but any talisman made under this configuration will not be best in class. Batn al-Hut, the 28th lunar mansion, is the most benefic mansion of the bunch, and the moon finds her way here on the 15th of the month. This mansion is full of Piscean, and therefore Jupiterian energy. A Piscean mansion, ruled by Jupiter, named the belly of the fish, whose image is a fish, and is said to be good for gathering fish, meaning attracting an abundance of a lucrative natural resource. The spirit of this mansion is Amnixiel. Picatrix Book 1, Chapter 4 reinforces the associations of this mansion to prosperity by saying the images made in this mansion increase merchandise, increase harvests, and cause peace and concord between man and wife, which is always easier when there is plenty of fish for the table and coin in the pocket. Book 4, Chapter 9 provides very specific instruction for the use of talismans made in this mansion, saying to suffumigate it with the skin of a sea fish, and to tie a string around it and throw it in the water where you wish the fish to come together. So, gathering fish is very literal, and it was meant to draw the creatures to a place where they could be caught. Playing with that metaphor in a modern context, this mansion could be used for money spells, gathering cash to you, especially in conjunction with an event or a place in which you have the opportunity to amass resources. But it might also be used to draw customers to a sales event or potential home buyers to an open house. You get the idea. Sadly, only the lucky Aussies get to wield the magic of this mansion in August. On the 15th, very early in the AM, the moon is waning, but I believe this mansion to be generally benefic and safe to use even in the waning phase, and I have. This month, the moon is in Pisces and trine Venus in Leo on the midheaven, a little after 1:45 in the morning. The moon next visits the Pleiades, heralded by the star Alcyone in the third lunar mansion Thuraya, which the Picatrix Book 4, Chapter 9 says is for the acquisition of all good things. According to fixed stars and constellations in astrology, the mansion is particularly good for sailors, huntsmen, and alchemists, and recommends plant and sow, but do not marry or travel by water. The image is a seated woman with her right hand over her head, and the spirit is a Mixiel. This of course sounds contradictory, but the Pleiades were long used as markers of the shifting seasons to determine when to plant and harvest, and when it was safe to sail or not. They reside on the back of the bull Taurus, emerging from the ecliptic in the ancient world in the spring to be hunted by the constellation Orion all summer, and as the bull dipped below the ecliptic in the fall, harvest season could begin. Likewise, the summer was the safe season for sailing, so the Pleiades became associated with both glory and tragedy at sea. The 6 visible and 1 invisible Pleiades sisters represent the fecundity of the annual cycle of nature, agriculture, the fish of the sea, and the profitability of maritime trade. They are hunted through the sky by the enraptured Orion, and this sexual magnetism is the essence of Thuraya, and it works by attracting abundance through feminine charm rather than by conquering it through masculine effort. This month, only AET time zone gets a date with Thuraya, when the waning moon conjuncts the midheaven and the north node in Taurus early in the morning on the 18th. Aggressive Dabaran, the 4th lunar mansion, is locked and loaded this month, ready to slay dragons and lay waste to cities. Home to the malefic star Dabaran, this mansion is associated mostly with destruction, but can be also used to sow discord. It has few positive qualities at the best of times, and this month's waning moon is aligned with the mansion's more violent delights. The spirit of this mansion is Azariel, and its image is a knight riding on a horse holding a serpent in his right hand. PST and EST have 1 election each on the 17th, and CET has 2, one on the 17th and one on the 18th, and Aldebaran. In PST and EST, the waning moon is conjunct the ascendant and the north node in trine Mercury. In CET, the election on the 17th on the ascendant is only conjunct the north node, but the one on the 18th has the same north node conjunction and trine to Mercury as PST and EST. I don't think it makes much sense to wear a malefic talisman in general. Images for Malefica, while I don't particularly recommend it, should always be buried or at least located at the area of their intended effect and not kept on your person or on your altar, etc. In Dirah, the 7th lunar mansion, the moon interacts with the twins of Gemini, whose brotherly love was so great that when one of them died, the other was able to persuade Zeus to allow him to come back from the dead under certain conditions. And their inseparable bond was immortalized into the heavens as the constellation Gemini. This theme of prayers being answered is the essence of Dirah, which is said to be good for asking for whatever good things you want. See, this mansion isn't the right one to ask for harm to come to someone, or to become rich through greed or extraction. Picatrix, Book 1, Chapter 4 says, to make images to increase merchandise and profit and to travel safely, to increase crops, to cause friendship, and to go into the presence of kings and high officials, and cause them to be benevolent. So, ask for good things, and this mansion makes it more likely that your prayers will be answered. PST has 1 election in Dirah on the 21st, while the moon in Gemini on the midheaven is sextile the sun in Leo. AET has 2, 1 on the ascendant and 1 on the midheaven on the 22nd, while the waning moon is sextile the sun. Since this election only features a sextile to the sun, I don't think it's worth making a long-term talisman. But this is a very positive mansion and useful for everything, so it's ideal for a spell or a short-term working using a talisman. Zubrah, the 11th lunar mansion in Leo, has the energy of a conquering king arriving at his next conquest in glorious array. The Picatrix describes its image as a table of gold with the image of a man riding a lion, holding a lance in his right hand and holding the ear of the lion with his left hand. And this tablet is to be carried with you. The name of the spirit of this mansion is Nekia, or Nessiel. The Picatrix, Book 1, Chapter 4 says, make images to rescue captives, to besiege cities and villages, to organize trade and profit from it, for travelers on the road to journey safe and unharmed, to strengthen buildings so that they are stable, and to increase the wealth of allies. This is all over the place, from conquest to safe travel, and from building buildings to building wealth. The theme of this mansion is more apparent from a further reading of Book 4, Chapter 9, the petition for Zubrah in particular, which says, "You, Nekol, bring glory to me that I shall be feared among men, and cause them to tremble when they behold me, and quiet the heart of the king and of lords, that they may grant me honors and dignities." The mansion's theme is clearly greatness and glory, either by fame or infamy. Only EST gets to work with Zubrah this month, early in the morning of the 25th, while the waning moon conjuncts Venus on the ascendant in Leo. The final election of the month is the second chance at Zubana, the 16th lunar mansion, which is associated with mercantile prosperity. This month's first lunar mansion election was also Zubana, so I will just repeat myself a little bit by saying, Book 1, Chapter 4, the Picatrix would give the impression that this mansion is used solely for destructive purposes, saying, "In this mansion make images for the destruction of merchandise, harvests, and plants." But Book 4, Chapter 9 clarifies by saying that a talisman made in this mansion is for making a profit in selling and buying merchandise, which continues the mercantile theme, but expands the concept to include positive outcomes as well. In the case of Zubana, the matter at hand is the act of buying and selling, which can be done at a profit or a loss, depending on the whims of the economy, the markets, timing, etc. Zubana gives us control over both in the waxing and waning of the moon, respectively. The spirit of this mansion is Azaruel, and its image is the figure of a man seated on a throne and carrying a scale in his hands. Folks in PST time zone have an opportunity to work this mansion on the morning of the 30th, while the moon on the ascendant in Libra makes a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. Repeating myself again, a trine to Saturn is sufficiently supportive to qualify this as a talisman-worthy election, and the rigorous, conservative nature of Saturn can serve one well in matters of business, particularly business conducted digitally with Saturn in its domicile in the air sign of Aquarius. That concludes the Lunar Mansion elections for August. Thanks for watching. I hope you found an election or two, or at least learned something new about one of the mansions I covered this month. As always, I have included the link to this presentation in the description below the video. Within it, at the back of the presentation, is a section for links to various resources like my quick start guide to Lunar Mansion Magic, engraving supplies on Amazon, and more for your convenience. Thank you for watching the August 2022 Lunar Mansion Magic Guide. If you enjoyed this content, please click like so that other people like you can find my videos, and consider subscribing to my channel so that you'll get notified when I post more content like this. If you have any questions about these elections, lunar mansions, or magic in general, please don't hesitate to contact me here in the comments, on Twitter and Instagram as postmuggleism, or by email at postmuggleism@gmail.com. It's always great to hear from you and find out more about what you're trying to accomplish with Lunar Mansion Magic. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.